Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Audit Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Russell, and today on the show we have Michelle Jackson and Edgar Berrios. Michelle is the Audit Assistant Director for the Audit Department at MIT, and Edgar is the Audit Supervisor on the audit team at MIT. And we're largely talking AI. So to begin with, it's mostly about how did they come up with their use cases, what kind of framework they used for that. Briefly just explaining what agentic AI is from their perspective, guidelines, guardrails in terms of developing this stuff. And then most of the episode is basically just Edgar pulling up a screen and showing a few examples of what he's built in Copilot. So this is one of those like primo episodes. Check it out on the YouTube channel, especially when Edgar shares his screen. That's probably going to be the best way to take this one in. Although we did account for, hey, not everybody's going to do that. So even the audio version, we try to make it to where it makes sense while Edgar's sharing his screen. This is very similar to the Audit Analytics and AI conference, which at the publishing of this episode should be next week. So it's on the 20th of May this year. Check that out. Links in the show notes if you want to attend that. Again, this is kind of a little taste of that, but during the conference, presenters pull up their screens and they show how they actually built some of this stuff. So with that said, here we go. So Michelle, do you have a favorite prompt, personal, professional, anything like that you could share with the audience?
Of course. Professionally, I'm always asking AI to polish this message. And I do like when I get a response back from AI in Polish. It's always fun.
And do you have one on the personal side as well?
Personal side, yeah, my husband and I had to do some shrink wrapping for some stuff around the house, and we didn't quite know how to use that flamethrower. So we used AI to help us understand how we could not burn the house down.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I know like with system prompts, so the ones behind kind of the interface that basically tell you or what, Claude and the like will tell you what you can and can't do. I felt like when you mentioned flamethrower, it was going to go, we can't tell you
It's like, no, I
flamethrower. We were trying to do, I haven't experienced any issues with that in a really long time, largely because I think I know enough to know like, okay, it's not going to give you this or don't even ask that. Nothing too scandalous, but my kid wanted to do a science project, and I think it's called Devil's Toothpaste and Devil's something else. I forget what it is, but it's where you add a bunch of like detergent and yeast and all, and it blows up,
to
right? So that was the
explode.
thing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so it told me is like, well, I can give you the ingredient list for this one. I can't give you
Mhm.
the ingredient list for the other one because it is super hazardous, and if it touches your skin, it'll melt off. It's
Uh,
basically napalm. And I went, oh, all right.
yeah.
But that one's the
It's
cool one.
Nuts.
So I did it across a couple different ones and even just like old school Google,
so
and Google's like, "Yeah, we can't tell you that. Sorry." So I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, Edgar, what about yourself? Do you have a one on the personal side? I know you're going to share some demos and stuff also, but do you have any use cases or prompts that you're a big fan of?
So similar to Michelle, just more polishing, but I put correct this and semicolon and just start writing emails, and it'll help me just polish, just get it. I think the main thing is now with being remote, you want to make sure that first email that you send out, if you're getting any requests or documentation, it's all clear. And I actually been able to learn a little bit more how to structure emails, especially a lot of with AI, you get a lot of bullet lists. I'm like, that's very efficient. If somebody's going in, instead of writing a paragraph, just put everything in list form. It'll make it a lot easier. But yeah, it's my go-to. It's the one that I use the most. And I mean, even because I use Gemini, Gemini tells me like, hey, do you actually want to correct this? It already knows that's my trigger for polishing any email. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. What about on the personal side? Do you have anything there you could share?
On the personal side, I mean, the only thing I think that it might be, it's kind of interesting what I used it. I was actually going to Disneyland this past December. Didn't actually eventually went, but wanted to plan the whole day. And I told it, this is the rides that I want to go see. And it told me the times that I should book it for, what I should do, everything. So it had a pretty structure, my whole day plan of where to go. So that's pretty awesome.
I like that one. We have a we're gonna take the kid to Disneyland or World. I don't even know the difference. One of those two.
Orlando,
Yeah,
yeah,
the one in Orlando. Yeah.
world, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we have a growth chart. So it's like when you're tall enough and we
Oh,
can do
okay.
all the
Yep,
stuff,
yep,
you can
yep.
do it.
Smart.
We are 1 inch away from being able to go. And I was like, I think if we
Oh,
buy you like tall enough boots, we could get away with it.
they just get it,
Level two.
slide you right in. Yeah, exactly.
But we'll be using that tip, Edgar.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was very useful.
Let's jump into the good stuff. Some more good stuff. Edgar, from your perspective, and there are different definitions for agentic AI, which makes it a little frustrating. But how would you define it? Kind of set the tone for the conversation today.
So how I would define it, I mean, compared to what I call like standard AI, so using ChatGPT or Google Gemini, it's more reactive. So you have a prompt, you expect a result. More agentic AI, I see it more as being proactive. So you already set up some guardrails, some follow like goals that you need to accomplish, and that's where the kind of the magic happens, I would say. So once you set up a goal, specific requirements that you need to do, and then you get the output of what you expected it to be within some guardrails that you build in those instructions.
Yeah, and I think the goal centered is one that's really important. You give it a goal, and it will go do that to a degree. Uh, and the risk part we've been talking about with folks recently has been with that goal that you set. So, like the one really good example that we've been sharing is like if you say, "Go be cost efficient," like that's part of our strategy. We're going to be cost efficient, saving whatever, cutting expenses, and so that's what the agent is supposed to do. It might go scorched earth on you and go like, okay, we're not going to pay for that maintenance on that piece of machinery because I'm supposed to be cost efficient. And so that's where the guardrails also, like you're talking about, and still having some level of review in there is really important before it gets too late. There's been some interesting stuff done in sandboxes like Take Over the World, things of that nature that have been kind of interesting to watch. So, all right.
But yeah, I think the point that you mentioned about reviewing it, that's kind of the key part, and something that I'll keep bringing up multiple times. It's having somebody, a human, just take a look at it at the output, just because you cannot just assume that it's gonna do it right every time.
And for those use cases that you developed, I'm curious about this, and I've been asking a decent amount because I mean, even like I'll demo something on a webinar or something like that, and somebody will message me and go, "Oh, that's super cool. Can you like, is there a recording? We want to implement that, whatever it is." And sometimes, like, we're able to have a conversation about it. I'll go, "That's really not a great use case for you guys and what you're doing and your vision and mission for the internal audit relative to the strategy of your organization, all that kind of good stuff." It's like, yeah, it is cool, but I don't know if that's the one I would work on if I were you right now in the position you guys are in. So what kind of framework or any guidance you can offer on um, almost prioritizing the use case and how you came up with that system?
So I would say it's a combination first of knowing the tools that we have available. So at MIT, we have like Google Gemini, we have Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. We decided on going Microsoft Copilot way just because of the functionality with Office products, and that's what we typically use on our day to day. And then once we learn a little bit more how agents work within Copilot, we started looking at our processes, kind of more the repeatable, low risks. Think especially kind of the criteria that we focus more is things that we already have guidelines set up, that it's easy to go back and check and make sure, well, did it actually do what I told it to to do, and go back to the guidance, refer back to that if it needed any tweaking. So have some foundation that you can definitely, whoever's the reviewer, can go back and validate the information. What's kind of the key areas for us. And within our process, we identified a risk control matrix that was a good use case to start building agents for drafting findings as well. And then also performing kind of QC of our audit report. So before we send it out to the auditees or clients, we go through, run a QC, it'll check font, grammar, things like that, just to have another kind of second set of eyes before we finalize those reports.
The risk and control matrix, I'm sure that's one that you're going to share with us today. It's probably one of the more common
Yes.
ones that I see.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to be good for the folks that are, because there's still, I mean, I spoke to a group today with 15 different organizations. They're all in the same industry. And I realized as I was setting up to go, like, hey, we're going to talk about Copilot use cases. And I went, who has Copilot? And like one hand went up. And so there's
Oh,
still a
wow.
lot of
Okay.
folks that don't have access, mostly because of risk management reasons
Yep.
as opposed to anything else. But um, so I still think RCMs and things like that that are fairly low hanging fruit type stuff are still applicable to a lot of people who, short of maybe having access to some tool on their personal laptop or their phone, they don't have the access, which can hurt, and trying to figure out what are we going to do with this.
Hmm.
So still excited
Oh,
about everything
definitely.
that you're going to show us. Well, and you can pick maybe one of your use cases as the example, or just keep it broad. But those guidelines and guardrails that we talked about, how'd you guys develop those, and how did you communicate those out to everyone so that the governance was in a good space to where you could go, we feel comfortable with rolling this out because of fill in the blank.
No, yeah, that's a good question. So at MIT, we have guidelines on AI use, so we reference to that, but we also develop our own internal guidelines as well. And we started building in be first with more kind of the initial AI tools, more of the prompt engineering. So we included what are good examples to use for prompts, and then from there started developing more into the AI kind of agents use and kind of putting the guardrails of what type of information can be entered, what not cannot be entered, and what it could be used for, providing the examples of each of the agents, describing them, and then from there it's more even documentation requirements into when you're using AI, just make sure in your work papers you reference that you utilize AI in developing, if it's the RCM or the audit report, just so whoever the supervisor reviewing the work papers, they know to look for that. And that's, I think, it's a critical component of all of our review that Michelle can also talk about. That once we go in and look at work papers, we identify like areas. Oh yeah, that's actually seems like you use AI just to confirm. So we have that validation as well, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. But after we developed the guidelines, we had trainings with our team. We have monthly meetings that we all get together. And in those, we started sharing, walking through. I've been sharing, walking through the agents and doing demos with staff and getting questions. So keeping the lines of communication open, just because there's different various expertise level in our team, and to people are very comfortable, people that are not. So kind of keeping a pulse of what people are using for and making sure we're training along the way.
I was just going to add, Edgar, yeah, it's a great point because even though we may say AI was used in the development of this XYZ, we also added and human reviewed it. So it was reviewed by a human. So it's not just, we used it and then just put it into this work papers and put it into the process, but it was reviewed by a human is an important element as well.
Okay. And is it a, you just notate this was generated by AI? Is there like a download of the prompt and the output to like a PDF that you attach somewhere or anything like that? Or are you guys sufficient with, nope, just note it and then as we review it? Because I mean, you're going to review it anyway. Like all these work papers are going to get
Right.
reviewed
Exactly.
anyway. So I just
Right.
heard different kind of different strokes for different folks. Is there any consideration to that to where you can tie output to basically the source that is the initial prompt that was used in the output there?
I- Interesting, right, Edgar? Because you can get two
Yeah,
different answers regardless if you ask the exact same question,
No.
depending on
exactly.
the,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like I
So
was mentioning, even with if I go in Copilot versus Gemini, I might get different responses every time, so it just varies. But I think as we keep evolving more, we haven't considered doing testing yet with using agents. I think, and that's the case, we'll probably start getting more information into what was the prompt, how do you run it, what was the results, just to kind of validate a little bit more of the steps along the way of what's been done. But for these, for now, I think we feel comfortable just reviewing it and then following up with the staff on
Okay.
how they used it if we have any
And
questions.
there's been questions I've seen floated around on like internal audits policy and usage and everything. And
Okay.
I like the way you did it and the way you guys did it. And I think that's the way to go. And it seems pretty obvious, but start with what's the orgs and then mold yours around that. And the reason I'm
Yes.
kind of emphasizing that, although I do think it seems obvious, inevitably there's going to be on a message board or LinkedIn or some webinar or something, somebody's going to go, here's our internal audit guidelines for AI. And somebody's going to go, sweet, guess what? That's ours too now. And we're just going to run with that. And I
Hmm.
think that can cause some issues. So if you're going to do that, I think it's fine to a degree, but definitely bump that up against your overall org policy also and make sure you're good to go there. For those that
Okay.
are just listening to the audio, Edgar's going to walk us through, share his screen and walk us through some agents and some AI tools and stuff that he's built. Um, we're going to try to speak to that as best we can so that if you are riding down the road listening, you can go, oh, yeah, I get that. Now, when I get back to the office, I can look that up. But what's likely going to work best is we will pull out just this part of the show. So this part going forward with all the demos and the good stuff. We'll make that into an individual YouTube video, stick that on the YouTube channel. So if someone just wants to see it, or even if you're listening to this live or listening to this, the audio, and you want to go back and watch and the clicking and dragging and dropping and all that kind of good stuff, you can certainly do that. With that said, Edgar, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you show us some cool stuff.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks. So first of all, I wanted to just get a quick walkthrough of how to build an agent in Copilot, the version that we have. So it's within the Microsoft 365 Copilot account, and once you click in your toolbar, it'll be under agents, like new agent. This window is gonna appear just to start configuration of the agent. It has different functions that you can utilize. There's a describe tab that you can click into, and you can actually tell Copilot what you want to do, and from there start building the agent. I actually prefer just going straight to the configuration. Within the configuration, you have the name, so the title of the agent, you have the description, so high level description of what the agent is, what it does. And then this is where the majority of the time that is being spent is in the instructions. So within here, you write in the instructions of what it needs to do. So step by step process. Typically, if what I've done from my end, I start working on a draft Word document, start putting like steps of what I want the agent to do. And then I actually utilize AI. I go to or Gemini or Copilot, say, "Hey, I'm building this agent for my audit team. Can you make it useful for Copilot?" And it'll give me kind of certain instructions that I can utilize. I can keep refining it, and then once I'm kind of in a good way to start putting it in, I copy and paste it into the instructions. Only caveat, and I'll do it here with this version of Copilot that we have, there's a limit of 8,000 characters, so that's something to always keep in mind. And what I've done too, if I go over the 8,000 characters, I actually go into AI as well and say, "Hey, I have a limit of 8,000
Yeah.
characters. Can you make it shorter than 8,000 or make it more concise?" And it's more like a trial and error once you start building the instructions. The nice thing with Copilot is that you have the way to interact with the agent before it's even built. So you can test it out, make edits to the instructions, and kind of work that way before you generate it. But wanted to then keep going along the configuration. So other tools that it has is knowledge. You can tell it specific websites that you want to add that it will pull information for that the agent would utilize. You can also restrict it to say only use specified sources of the websites that you share, or you can also turn it on to look at everything. So all websites just to get information. So
And then
it's
knowledge is
another
also
nice capability.
uh, where you can also attach policies and procedures and things of that nature. So if you, or your SharePoint sites as well, right?
If you have, yeah, we don't have that turn on to be able to share, but yes, if you have a SharePoint site, you could probably put it here as a link
Yeah.
too as well.
And just real quick on the SharePoint site way of doing it, if you have old documentation, so if you have like policies and procedures or whatever from 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and current, um, be mindful that it's likely going to pull from all of those. So you got to be a little tactful in how you reference those if you're going to do it. So anyway, okay.
Yep, thanks. And then capabilities. This actually was something at the beginning that we started building the agents. It wasn't available to our Copilot license, but now it is that it can develop, it can generate Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files. So you can turn that on and off if you wanted to. The same with images, you can turn on and off for creating images. And then at the bottom of the configuration is suggested prompts. Those are actually helpful for whoever's coming into the agent. They already have a frame of reference of what prompt they can start building in. So you can create as multiple prompts you want to add in. So it'll be like a title for the prompt, so very high level. I think for the RCM, I have like generate RCM. And in the message, I have basically a statement saying, I want to create a risk and control matrix for insert process name. And that way it makes it easier for whoever's coming in to just start interacting with the agent.
Perfect. And I'm sure if anyone's kind of lost right now on the suggested prompts, when you share your screen on an actual agent, I think it'll be a little bit more obvious what you're talking about on that one.
Yep. So I'll actually go from here and then just show it real quick. Um, so like how I have it here and how I'm showing in my screen is for the what we call is the RCM developer, so risk and control matrix. This is the prompt. It's you click on that and it'll put it in the chat line, and then you just replace the name with whatever process you want to create a RCM. And then the nice thing in our instructions, we added our guidelines into how to create a risk and control matrix, objectives like the risk types, our inherent risk assessment as well, added control descriptions and test procedures as examples as well. So pretty much it covers the whole RCM. We typically have it in an Excel file. So at the end, we can get to generate the output in Excel. It'll make it easier to make any final edits if you have to. But for purposes of today, I went ahead and told it create a standard payroll process RCM. And this is kind of what it came out with. And it first starts with the business objective. I think it's pretty good overall objective. And then from there, it goes into the different risks. I like how it's very detailed. We have this too, like risk ranking justification. So it tells you why it's rated as likelihood medium or impact medium. So it's very useful in having good information to start off with, even if you're starting a new engagement and you just want to have an example of one. Maybe this would trigger your walkthrough meetings or your discussions with management and to identify what the key controls are. Even scoping, it could definitely help with that as well. So I think I see this more as a jack of all trades that you can ask it for like control descriptions if you need it. If you need any test procedures as well, it will give you any suggestions to go along the way. But I mean, I'll go down here. I'll go through all the risks. So it gave me 5 risks, 14 controls that it identified, and then from there it gave me suggestions into how to test the controls, even sampling. We added the sampling guidance into the instructions, so it's very helpful. And at the end, we added this. I mean, this is not more related to this, but more if we had already policies and procedures or walkthrough notes that you can add to the tool to build the RCM. Even looking at all the data, we built this into the instructions to give any suggestions like, hey, this might be controls that you want to ask management about, and maybe have they consider to use these controls to mitigate risks. So for here, it gave me an example of 3. I mean, it's unrelated because I told her to build it from scratch, but if it was another process that you already have some good information to start up with, this is, I think, good key information that then you can go back to management and ask some follow-up questions as well. And once you're fine, I mean, along the process of going through the agent, definitely it'll keep prompting you like, hey, is this is right? You can ask like, correct this, fix this. The test procedures don't look right. Can you change it to this? So make all of those edits. But once you're good with it, at the end we have it basically saying, if you want to generate the file in Excel, and it'll put you the prompt to give you the whole document in Excel. And I can quickly show that too as well.
Okay. And while you're doing that, if anyone's watching, or for those that are watching and you're going, well, that's not what our RCM looks like, or our format's different, you can have it formatted however you want to. So if you want rows and columns in Excel, or if you want to see it, the output as rows and columns that you could then export to Excel. So here you have the Excel version pulled up. You can have it generated in this version, this table version in Copilot or the tool. Um, it's just a little easier on the eye. So like different strokes for different folks. But I mean, almost always, if I'm getting a list of anything, even if it's just like restaurants in the whatever city that I'm in with more than 4.8 stars on Yelp that is Italian and with homemade pasta or something like that, it's still like every single time I go, put it in a table, put it all in a table. I don't want to, tables are where I tend to hang out. So
Oh, definitely. And the nice thing, even with the instructions, we built in that structure into how we wanted the columns. So I can go back and I actually asked it as well, like, hey, can you make it in a table format, and actually did it now. So it has it already here in a table format. So if you want to look at it, you can view it that way as well.
I think it's crazy how far we've come. Like if I would have seen this 4 years ago, I would have been like, this is the single greatest breakthrough in the history of technology, just even the RCM thing. And now it's like, wait, you're not even doing RCMs in there yet? Like you guys really need to get caught up. It's pretty nuts.
No, I mean, and the other part is like even as a team, right? You get more consistency across different as a team overall to make sure we capturing the same type of information based on the guidance that we built. So I think the possibility, yeah, it's endless. It's really good. It's a
Which
really
the
good tool.
I mean, the consistency is important for multiple reasons, but then even another one is just as a reviewer, like you might not work with the same person who's going to prompt it the same. So if you look at it and you go, this is totally different than this other group. I mean, anybody who's been in an external audit and you had to use internal audits lead sheets and they varied from client to client, it's just like, wait, where do you document the, oh, why would you put it there? It's so weird there. I'm not used to seeing it there. So even as the reviewer, it's really helpful to have the consistency.
So another that I mentioned before was the draft audit finding developers, how we called it. But again, I told it to give me an example. It has all the guidance into how to write a finding from our division, and including criteria, condition, cost, and consequence. So it built that in already here, gave me a good output. And then the other part is within our reports, we don't list it. Each of the four C's, we include it more in a paragraph form. So it gives you both options just so you can then validate that the criteria, condition, cost, and consequence is correct. And then if you're fine with that, then you have the paragraph version as well that then you can copy paste into our reports or into our audit tool, which is Audit Board, that we can just copy paste in there. Um, and then it also gives you,
I haven't seen that single paragraph version of the where you have 4 Cs. That's new to me. I really like that. I'm sure there's gonna be audit report viewers who are gonna be like, "Could you just email me the single paragraph version of this thing and, like, we'll be good?" Or, like, "That's all I want in my audit committee deck," or whatever, wherever these are getting reported. So that's a good pro tip that I have not seen. So if anybody is listening, check out, whatever point in time we are on this in the audio version, look at the single paragraph version. That's nice. I like that.
and then we go into, it goes into the recommendation, which is, I mean, it's helpful too as well. Just instead of the finding, it gives you also as well the recommendation, which is nice. Um, Again, with this agent, even though like you might have a finding already written down, you can go back, put it in, tell it, hey, can you double check, make sure I have my four C's, or I want to expand on the consequence. Can you do it? It definitely can handle that as well. So even if you don't have it, like if you finish testing and you want to put the results in, you can do that, but you can come back later too and use it as well. So that's what I like too with the agents, that even though we set up some instructions into what to follow, you can still go back and utilize this different ways. So it's pretty flexible in that regard.
I think another important takeaway, especially on this one as the use case, inevitably somebody's going to review this, like the CAE or
Hmm.
whoever is going to review this, and so they're still going to have comments to some degree, in all likelihood. And so, for example, I know the comment I would often get would be, "Hey, this is way too technical. I don't even know what Windows AD is. Can you explain this so I can explain it to the audit committee or whatever?" And I'd be like, "Okay, I guess yeah, that makes sense." So then, I guess recommendation I would make to folks that are listening is when you get that feedback, take it and then put it back into the instructions that we talked about to say, hey, if there's any technical jargon, please explain it as if, it's going to an executive with zero tech background or something like that. And it'll pull that stuff out and explain it. So you just can consistently or constantly rather like build on this with each review note that comes back and go, cool, we'll plug that into the instructions and we don't have to worry about it as much next time.
I mean, that's something that's been helpful in our team. It's, we had touch points once we started adding the agents into our processes to get feedback from staff and to, oh, well, this is actually now doing it consistently this way. And I'll definitely would to go back and try to tweak things and make sure that the instructions were more clear into getting what we needed. So we have those lines of communication that staff would come in and give us feedback, and we go in and make any changes to the instructions. And I think the other thing I wanted to share with the instructions as well, and it's more the functionality with Copilot, at least the version that we have right now, it's the instructions. It's only the point in time. So if I make a change today, right now I cannot go back in time and see what was the instructions like a couple weeks ago. So what we done to kind of as a workaround to that, we develop like a Word document, and we save all the versions of the instructions. In the event we need to go back or show how we change the instructions over time, we have that reference that we can go back to.
That's like you said, it's a very simple way to do it, and I think it's the easiest for most folks. You can use like VS Code or something like that, where you have like code versioning. You can do something similar there if you have access. Well, I mean, everyone could have access to that, but if you understand how the tools work, if you have someone on your team that's like a Python person, they're likely using that, and so you could also use that for version control. Um, but yeah, just the Word version tracking changes and things like that.
And the last agent that I wanted to go to, I referenced before, was the Auto Report Quality Reviewer. So I basically just ask it here, like for presentation purposes, like what it does, and it kind of gives you here kind of the details of what it's looking for. But just going more into the details of what it's actually doing, it's checking for like on AP style, so formatting, so font, and here's kind of what it's looking for, kind of the sizing, even the header, footer. So we have different colors that headers must be. The footers have to include certain things. And then watermarks if it's a draft versus a final report, not to include the draft. And even more, even the water report distribution listing that we have on our reports, we have to make sure it's alphabetized. So we check for that too as well. So there's different elements that it's performing. It's helpful. I wouldn't say this one is like I have a high confidence level with it just because it hallucinates sometimes a lot with this. I think it's more the formatting that it gets confused, and it might tell you, oh, this is wrong. And then when you go into the file, it's actually right. But I think it's a good reference to put it through the agent, and at least at the end it gives you what it's looking for, and it's a double validation that you can go back to the report, validate that everything is correct before that report goes out.
Edgar, thank you a ton for showing those. Highly recommend people that are listening go check out the actual videos. You can see how simple some of these things are. They do get significantly more complicated, especially like we're getting to the testing world for now, anyway. But for sure, there's some pretty easy stuff that pretty much everybody can do, even just from the simple, I don't know how long that took, 10, 15 minutes that you showed. So thanks a ton for that. That was absolutely what a lot of people need to see still. But anyway, with that said, Edgar, I'll kind of throw it to you. What do you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. It's very great to just share kind of the tools that we're using, and I think what I would leave with everybody is just not to have kind of, don't let the concerns around AI paralyze you. Just make sure that you start learning. I think it's like learning a new language. Don't be afraid to it. And I think the more you know, the better you're going to be prepare yourself and position your team and yourself as well to enhance and do a lot of things better. So that's kind of what I would leave it to.
All right. Thanks, Edgar. Michelle,
Yeah,
close
thanks.
us out.
Yeah, thanks for the time and important. Anything used, any information generated with AI, you've got to have a human in there. You can't just rely upon
Yep.
it. It's important to say, yep, it's great saving time on this and that, but without a human reviewer, you're putting yourself at risk. So keep a human involved in the process.
Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Audit Podcast. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, I'm sure there's a subscribe button somewhere, so please hit the subscribe button there. If you're listening through iTunes or Spotify, feel free to go give us that 5-star rating. It only took me about 16 seconds to give myself a 5-star review, and it really helps to get future guests to come on the show, so we'd really appreciate that. Lastly, be sure to check out the show notes and follow us on all our social media channels on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Also, if interested, please sign up for our weekly newsletter from the Audit Podcast. Thank you all. Have a great one.